Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. In today's video I'm going to be giving you a bunch of spring book recommendations because we are in spring. I know, where's the year running away to? I've got a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. That's just so perfect. Books that I would like to recommend to you that in my opinion I think are perfect for the spring season. I could not be filming this at a better time. It is literally Good Friday today. Tomorrow is Easter Saturday and tomorrow is the day that you'll be seeing this video hopefully. Fingers crossed I can actually edit in like couple of hours and get this video up for you. So that means it is Easter weekend. I went to church this morning. I'm in a very spring mood. I'm wearing a top that actually has daisies on the bottom and the sleeves. 'Tis the season and I thought I'd welcome it with some book recommendations for you. So I got my large stack of books here as well as a couple of ebooks that I'll mention and put the photos up on the screen. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first book I have to mention here is one that you might not immediately think of because it is set across like a year, I believe. So there are many seasons introduced into it, but that is The Willows by Kenneth Grahame. So this is a beautiful children's classic. I've read quite a few children's classics by this point. I would say this is like a children's classic that truly is appropriate for all ages. There's never a moment in it that you feel kind of like you're being spoken down to, and it's the most wonderful story. It's someone that I was very familiar with, but I read for the first time a couple of years ago and I just fell in love with it for myself. And yeah, so this book has a beautiful snowy atmosphere for Christmas. It has a lovely summer atmosphere as well. The spring season is the one that the book opens to. The main character Mole is doing his spring cleaning and it's just the most beautiful scene ever. And so I think that because you've got the option to read this at different seasons, if I had to pick one, I would pick spring. So the first line of this is: the mole had been working very hard all morning, spring cleaning his little home. It's got the word spring in it. In this story we follow Mole and he is introduced to the other animals within his woodland that he lives in. So we meet Ratty, who's his bestie, and then we meet Toad as well. We meet a bunch of different other creatures like weasels and badgers and everything like that, and it's just the perfect book that kind of encapsulates English nature. So if you want an English kind of spring, then this is a beautiful story, really quick little read and definitely worth your time. And like I said, I really loved this when I read this. Next up we have another book that is truly set in spring, and that's the reason why I decided to put it on this list. It's also another book that I'm just like, if you haven't read this already, what are you doing, you know? And that is Thorns and Roses by Sarah Maas. This is a book that I read in 2016 and I loved every second of it. I was honestly hooked by the end of the first page, and the first page is only like a paragraph. Let me show you. Yeah, I read like 3 paragraphs and I was like, yes, I'm obsessed, and that lasted throughout. But this book follows Feyre, and she is kidnapped from her home in the human realm to be brought into the fairy realm because of a crime that she accidentally commits. The fairy realm is split up into different courts: summer court, autumn court, winter court, and of course there is the spring court, as well as a bunch of other ones. But the one that Feyre gets brought into at the beginning of this book is the spring court, and there's some lovely descriptions. Great house that she gets brought into. This series starts off as a very loose Beauty and the Beast retelling, so if you just think of like the grand house that the Beast lives in and then the gardens and everything like that, you do experience that, and also all the spring weather and everything like that. It's also the start of a series, and spring is all about new beginnings, so I feel like this is a great one to pick up and my favorite ever series of all time, so I think you will love it, hopefully. Fingers crossed. I just realized there's a sticker on here. It's talking about a competition that you could apply for. The closing date is the 15th of July 2015. So I've got like a piece of history on this book because this is a first edition, I believe. No, regardless, stunning series. Next up we have another little classic book, or written by a classic author, lesser well-known work, and that is The Complete Short Stories by Oscar Wilde. So I am partially recommending this to you because I've only read about 3 of the stories in this bind-up. How many are there? How many are there? I haven't got it quite. Wow. Oh, there's over 20 basically. So the ones I've read, let me tell you, they suited different seasons. So one of them I read was The Canterville Ghost, which is obviously a ghost story. That's perfect for October. But I've also read The Sphinx Without a Secret, and particularly The Selfless Giant, which is one of my favourites. I gave it 5 stars. I think it was the most beautiful story. I think that one particularly is about a garden, and I think it's perfect for spring. But yeah, any of these just like to dip into to give you something to maybe sit outside in the sun and read. I think this would be wonderful. For anyone overseas, I'm sorry, this is a very northern hemisphere focused video, but I'll do some more general recommendations in the near future. So the next book I have to mention is one that I don't actually physically own, which is so silly because I absolutely loved it at the time. I read it via ebook and I actually got an arc of it, and that's Hood by Jenny Elder Moke. I think that's how you pronounce her surname. This is basically a kind of retelling of, well, not retelling, a continuation of the story of Robin Hood, which is a story I've actually never read, but I was very familiar with the Disney animated film when Robin Hood's a fox. But this book is actually a continuation from the Disney story, so all the characters are the ones that you meet in Disney's adaptation of Robin Hood, but they're obviously not all animals. And this story follows Robin Hood's daughter Isabel. So she's the daughter of Maid Marian and Robin Hood. The typical kind of adventure story that you get from the original Robin Hood story. So the main theme in this book is woodland, and I just think while this would be a book that you could read really easily during the awesome season, I would like to recommend it now for you as well, because I think it's a really underrated book and it's full of nature. So if you're interested in something more kind of woodland focused rather than garden focused, that could be a fun one. And like I said, I definitely recommend it. I got 5 stars at the time. I really loved it. I definitely need to buy my own physical copy of it. Next book I have to mention here is a little bit of a different one, because this is not particularly focused on spring. This is more general. It's much more kind of like internal. There's not so much focus on the world, but more people, I guess you could say. And that is Letters to a Young Poet, Maria Rilke. So this book is a series of letters that were exchanged between Rilke and an aspiring poet who was a young kind of student, and Rilke kind of sends him letters of advice. Thankfully the boy was happy to publish the letters he received from Rilke, and we have this wonderful little collection of them. This is the quickest little read, one of the Penguin Little Black Classics, number 103 this is. You can get it in store for £1, 52 pages, and it's absolutely wonderful. While there's not mention of spring in this book, there is a great mention of new beginnings and the kind of fresh inspiration and joy within life that is found within youth. And so I think that if you're a young person looking for something to like invigorate you and to encourage you to step out into the world and follow your passions and your dreams and what really makes you tick, then I feel like this is a really wonderful book to pick up. It just kind of fits with the whole theme of new beginnings that we celebrate during spring. Another book I have to mention is another book that I don't know physically, but that is Life on Earth by David Attenborough. So this was a book that I read via audiobook, and first of all, truly not a better book to read by audiobook. It's narrated by David Attenborough himself, so it's essentially like you're watching one of his documentaries, but there's no visuals, right? It's just listening to his voice, and it's so atmospheric and beautiful. So as the title suggests, this book is like a, what's the word? Not a summary, like it shows the sequence of life on Earth. So it starts from little atoms and molecules and things like that, and then it goes into things like fungi and plants, and it goes into animals, and then it ends on humans. So it's truly like this history of life on Earth, not just human life, but life full stop. And it's super insightful. There's so many things that I learned that I didn't know about. It's not just talking about, you know, I don't know, what's an example? It doesn't just talk about like birds of paradise, like mating displays or something, which are things lots of us are already familiar with through watching his programs. There's a lot more about the original foundation of life and like what it is to live through like a scientific viewpoint. The end of this book actually brought me to tears because of the section on humans. There was so much that I discovered about human beings, which is such an interesting, incredible kind of thing to experience the first time, to be a human and then to learn more about humans. So much about the way that we work, the way that we live and breathe. It's just beautiful. Honestly, the ideal book to read if you're really trying to immerse yourself into life and creation and new life, which again, 'tis the season. Next up I have a book to mention that I feel like some of you are going to roll your eyes at me over, because this is my favourite book of 2022 and it's one that I kind of bring up every single opportunity I can get, but I have a reason, okay? So this is The Idiot by Elif Batuman. I truly adore this book. It is so stunning. Everything is just wonderful about it. Like The Wind and the Willows, we follow an entire year of our main character Salon's life. So this book starts at the beginning of the academic year, so because we're in America, it's the very end of August into early September, and then we follow Salon's life across this 1 year, like I said, and there's a big chunk of it that's in summer towards the end of it, and then we go into her next academic year at Harvard. You could definitely read this, so basically any time of year. I'm sure early autumn this would be perfect as well, because it's like the beginning of the school year. If we're talking about the theme of new beginnings, most of our minds would go to spring, and that's why I think this is the perfect season to be reading this book. Salon's life is kind of just beginnings. Things are changing rapidly for her. She's experiencing so many new things and meeting so many new people. Everything is fresh and new and exciting. Honestly, the first line in the back here says, "The year is 1995 and email is new." Like, the world is changing, Salon's life is changing, kind of the start of an epic journey, which is Salon's life. Yeah, I'm gonna stop talking about it, but yeah. Stunning, beautiful book. So kind of deep and profound, but also a very easy read and extremely relatable and everything like that. I think you'd really enjoy it. My final 2 books to mention. These are both children's classics that I think are both appropriate for the season, but the first one probably more so. So I have the absolutely ancient, very dated edition of The Secret Garden by Hodgson Burnett. So this is a story that was read to me by my dad when I was a little girl. It's the story of Mary, and she goes away to live with her uncle, I believe it is. Yes, her uncle. The house that she moves into is very dark and depressing, and it's all void of joy. But while she's there, she discovers a garden, and then within that garden, a secret kind of walled garden. And together with this companion who she meets at this house, she decides to try and bring the garden back to life again. If you want a book about nature, if you want a book about growth and things kind of sprouting and the vibrant greens being able to be seen from the grey gloomy rubble, then this is the book for you. This is the absolute epitome of spring. That's why I thought I'd recommend it. It's also a very charming little book. There's also some studying editions of this book. If you haven't already read this book, then now's your time. This is your sign. The final book is another one that I feel like you could read at various other points of year, but I don't know, Maybe it's because of this cover or kind of the attitude I had when I first read it. And my mum actually read this book to me. Again, this is another one, if you've been putting off, this is your sign to start reading. And that is Anne of Green Gables by Montgomery. So this follows Anne, and she is adopted by Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert. They live on a farm in Canada, I believe. I think it's set in Canada. Did I just lie? I'm almost certain it's Canada. I mean, it would never tell you, would it? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's Canada. This story is about a new beginning for Anne. But it's also about her eyes being opened up to nature and to life and to a good childhood and meeting new friends and everything like that. So this is another one that I feel like is a very kind of light, gentle book, but also has a lot of personality. In my opinion, perfect for the season. I love how I'm giving you spring book recs and I'm holding a mug, Christmas mug with holly on it. Good coffee though. So there you have it, everybody. Unless I've missed some, those are the 10 book recommendations I have for you this spring. I hope you've discovered a new book to pick up. I've not shown you anything new, that I've shown you something that you have been familiar with for a while, but you've never actually got around to reading it. Now is your chance. Like I said throughout, this video is your sign to read them. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, because that's how I know that you did enjoy it, and subscribe because I'd love to have you around here throughout spring and into the future seasons. I have another video that is kind of a general book recommendation for new readers, so if you are kind of just getting into reading this year, or you want to pick up a book for spring but you don't need something that's like specifically spring focused, I will have that linked in the cards and down below, as well as my Valentine's Day one, because that's full of pink and red books and it's very cute. They're all about love, good vibes. Thank you for spending your time with me here, and if you decide to stick around, I'll see you on Wednesday for another video.